I'm going to show you what's different about the latest version of the PV3 lock. I'll try and do it in an order that you'll see it as you're installing it, so you'll recognize the differences as you go. So first item is the, and I've only got one spacer here, this is the mechanism plate that goes on the inside door. You'll notice that the plate is, the back plate that goes on the door used to be rectangular. We've cut out some of this material as it's unneeded and saved some money there. The next thing we did was we used to have this bolt that holds this spacer and holds the plates together. Used to be countersunk, but the size of the bolt would come out the edge just a tad, and that created some problems as it would warp the back plate from time to time. So we've taken away that countersink and didn't save some machining for the plate. Also, we were able to use a hex bolt that is the correct size and does not come out the back. So that's the first two items that you will see. I should make note, there are three of these bolts that hold this spacer, but be careful because they look a lot like the bolt that goes into the outside, or the outside handle. So you'll see the bolt that goes into the outside handle has a shoulder after the hex end, and it's just a tad longer than the bolts used for the spacer. So hopefully that would alert you if you were to try to use this bolt for the spacer versus the outside handle. Next thing you'll probably notice is the inside handle and how it connects to the linkage. It used to be on the previous versions you would use a clevis pin and a clip. In this particular case, now we've gone to a notch that goes in, and no clevis pin is necessary. So it fits in and spins across and locks in place. Now you will have to do that. You'll have to lock that in place before you place all the bolts in this plate, because you won't be able to spin it on the angle. It'll be stopped by one of the spacers. So you can put the panel and the spacers all on. You'll just have to take one out to get, when it's time to get this in place. So we still need to use the clevis on the back end of that short linkage, and this goes for both sides. You'll still have to use the clevis on the long locking rod, because we have to cut that, so we wouldn't know where to put this particular notch pin in there. And then you'll also notice the long locking rod. We made this locking pin much larger. It used to be 3/8, this is 5/8. Now this will require you to drill a bigger hole for the locking rod, but we've determined that in some of the failures that we see, the 3/8 pin would bend out. And so in this case, now a 5/8 pin, I'm not going to say it won't bend with the right amount of pressure, but something else is much more likely to fail. Unfortunately, there's a possibility that the doors will bend, but clearly our lock will be stronger with a 5/8 locking pin for top and for bottom. Next thing you'll notice is we were using the plastic for the rod to slide in and out of, the locking rod to slide in and out of and keep it in place. We've changed that to steel, so there's less likelihood of the plastic breaking, which we did see on a few occasions as well. So that block, top and bottom, has been replaced with steel. So this block will no longer be in the kit. It will be replaced with two of these. So I mentioned you'd still have to use the clevis pin on the short linkage to the long linkage piece. But we did make a change, and we made a change on the ring. So we were using an E-clip. We've gone to a snap ring now. You might be familiar with pretty flimsy snap rings. This particular snap ring is quite sturdy. It's thicker, heavier spring, and it installs pretty easily. And it installs with snap ring pliers, easy to buy, fairly inexpensive, but it holds quite well, and it has much less opportunity to bang on anything and snap off. If you were to do this with the E-clip that we had, it'd probably pop off. It won't pop off with this retainer ring, and it's been tested and sturdy. I've tried to break it. I've had the manufacturer try to break it, and we just haven't been able to pop it off or snap it. So that's that. So let's recap. So the changes are this bottom plate, the plate that goes against the door, used to be fully rectangular. We just took out that extra material, unneeded material. Secondly, the bolts that go through the spacer and hold the end, it's not countersunk anymore. It's a socket head, and it's threaded all the way to the shoulder, all the way to the socket cap, and not to be confused with the bolt that has a bit of a shoulder and is a tad longer and is used for the outside handle, to hold the outside handle on. Next, we talked about the elimination of the E-clip where the small linkage meets the inside handle, and we explained that. We discussed the rod, striker rod, and the thickness, the change from 3/8 to 5/8 for more security. We discussed the rod keep that goes into the door, change from steel, or I'm sorry, change from plastic to steel. And lastly, we changed the E-clip to hold the small linkage to the striker bar. We changed that from an E-clip to a snap ring, retainer ring, and it's a sturdy one and will not be removed from being banged or pushed, and you will need the retainer or snap ring pliers for that.